Hey there, welcome to the Alexa Z Show, because life should be fun and meditation should be easy. In today's episode, I'm going to shed a little light on emotional intelligence. Now, if you're immediately thinking, I don't need to hear that, I already know about it, I read Daniel Goleman's book back in the 80s, hold tight. I'm here to tell you why meditation is going to improve your emotional intelligence, why you need to always increase your emotional intelligence, how it's going to make you a better person, a better leader, and we are all leaders. And I think it's maybe going to be a little something that might motivate you in the sense of one more magical thing that meditation can do. So hold tight, let's talk emotional intelligence, and I'll see you in a minute. Go grab a glass of water, get yourself comfortable, and I'll be right back. A show for those who want to meditate or maybe tried, loved it one day, hated it the next, or maybe forgot why the heck they're supposed to do it anyway. Well, you landed on the right show. Do you still find yourself wishing you had more time, waking up tired, wanting to take back what you just said to your boss? Seriously, don't you just want to spend a peaceful, productive day with time left to learn the guitar and start that $1 million side hustle? Follow me at alexazmeditates.com/podcast and let's make it happen. Hey there, Alexa Z here. Before we jump into the topic of mindfulness, meditation, and emotional intelligence, I want you to just take a moment and just check in with yourself and in your mind, think, what are my emotions right now? What are my feelings right now? Sometimes when I work with kids, I'll say, hey, what's the weather today? That's always a good one. It's good for adults too, because sometimes I'm feeling stormy and sunny at the same time, kind of like almost like my weather is a bit oxymoronic. So hold on to that thought of what your emotions are, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you did read Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, then maybe you already have some intelligence behind this topic. But I'm always good about keeping it simple because that's the way my brain works. But there is a really good reason why we need emotional intelligence. Now, usually you hear about it in a leadership kind of format or a reason to be a better leader. And that is absolutely true. And I think everyone should be a good leader. It doesn't matter if you're in a company or you're running your family or you're just making your way through life. Imagine what the world would look like if you couldn't perceive that the person you're around, whether it's an employee or a family member, imagine if you couldn't perceive that your friend was frustrated or your friend was upset. Imagine if you couldn't have that ability to kind of tune in to like what's really going on and connect with the people you're with. Research calls this emotional intelligence. And research also says this is what differentiates great leaders from average ones. Back to Daniel Goleman's book back in the 80s, and you don't need to go read it, but if you want to, it's fantastic. There was a study, I'm not going to get too much into studies, but one is pretty much tells it all. It was about 200 executives, and they found that their emotional intelligence, you'll also hear it called EQ, emotional quotient, was twice as relevant to performance compared to their IQ and their technical abilities. So think of it this way. People with high emotional intelligence can run right by, I think it's about 70% of the time they're said, people with high emotional intelligence can run right by people with high IQ and high technical abilities to become better leaders. That's how important emotional intelligence is. I have always been fascinated about it because I don't know. I think I'm relatively smart. I don't have a high IQ. There are just things I can't change. I can change my emotional intelligence. Not only can I change it, even if it's high, I need to work on it all the time. Think of it this way. Your IQ is your IQ. The way you learned way back when is the way you learn today. It doesn't change. Your personality doesn't really change. I always say I'm an introvert hiding in an extrovert's body. Well, this keeps coming up when I'm talking to people about meditation. It happened again last night. So today I had to sit down and be like, I got to talk about emotional intelligence. People come to me and I say, what's your desire to meditate? It's always my first thing. What's your desire? What brought you here? And very often their desire is to stop being so emotional and stop making their decisions being very reactive and really running their life with emotions and not feeling like they're balancing logic and reason and emotions. Well, lo and behold, that is emotional intelligence. The best definition, I think, for emotional intelligence, the simplest way to look at it is at the very beginning of the show, a couple minutes ago, I said 4 minutes and 30 seconds ago, I said, hey, what's your emotions today? How are you feeling? And you probably had to sit there and think about it for a minute. It's not easy to tune into your own emotions. Somebody who's really able to do that is a good leader because what they're doing is they're so in tune with monitoring their own feelings and emotions, really knowing right now, where are my emotions? What are my feelings doing? But they're also able to do it with those around them. So if I know my emotions and my feelings, I'm able to get the take on, just say I've got an employee across from me, what their emotions are and how they're feeling. I'm able to differentiate and discriminate between all those things. And I use that information, and my thinking and my actions are going to be based on all of that because I want my actions to have the greatest outcome, the greatest success for me and for my employees sitting across from me, or me and my family, or me and my friends. So it sounds like, oh yeah, that's easy. It's not, because we're going so fast. Our emotions are coming at us so fast that it's like they're not getting to our brain in the right order. So like, what's an emotion? Emotion, it's a response, right? It's a neurologic response to a very strong stimuli. That's an emotion. Well, your rational brain needs to catch up with that. So as your emotions and all that yummy stuff is coming in so powerfully through your brainstem and entering your brain, well, we need to differentiate it and discriminate amongst it before it gets to our executive prefrontal cortex portion of our brain where we start reacting. And that's why it's probably one of my favorite topics because in meditation, we're helping become more aware of our feelings and emotions and more aware of our bodies. So as we're doing this, the more we can discriminate and differentiate and be really in tune with that, the more we're able to work it through and be rational and not at the end of the day say, oh God, I so wish I didn't make that decision based on the fact that I was just in a crappy mood today, or the fact that, my employee was really feeling upset today, or my husband was really upset today, and I totally reacted with my emotions. I wasn't able to figure out that, wow, my emotions are getting higher because his emotions are getting higher, and then the decision-making isn't right, and the outcome's not successful for everybody. It just made me think of something. This is really silly, but it's a good example. Years and years and years ago, I was teaching this woman, and she said she really wanted her 5-year-old. She wanted to be able to deal with her 5-year-old. She was cute, adorable, wonderful kid, but just in her words, crazy, just crazy. And she's like, I can't take it anymore. She probably would have preferred that I taught her 5-year-old to meditate, and she never learned, but I was like, okay, that's not going to work. Mom's got to learn first. So when I taught her and we learned about body scanning and really being aware, our body will tell us about our emotions before anything. So being in tune with our bodies, therefore being in tune with our emotions, therefore knowing, wow, I'm really wound up. My child is really wound up. What am I going to do here? And the calmer she became and the more aware she became of how the situation was making her feel, then the more her child was reacting to her calmness. So suddenly, just that moment of my child is getting excited, I'm getting excited. My excitement perhaps is making my child excited. That ability for her to know that, it wasn't more than a week later, she thought she had discovered magic. She's like, I can't believe it. The calmer I get, the calmer my 5-year-old gets. And I know that's, again, seems like a silly example, and that's not quite the level of emotional intelligence, but it's pretty good though. It's a strong emotional thing going on, a strong stimuli. So When you're meditating, that's what you're doing. You're trying to become more aware of the sensations, right? We talk about internal sensations, noticing as things change, noticing where our triggers are. Emotional intelligence requires very good communication between the rational center of your brain and the emotional center. So if you think of it like a seesaw, and I put it in the picture of today's podcast, you got a brain on one side and a heart on the other. And if any of you know somebody in your life who is absolutely brilliant, and you're like, oh my God, they're so smart, but they're actually so smart that sometimes you want to smack them because everything they say comes from this highly intellectual level that you're thinking, oh my God, there's no emotion in this. And often you make decisions based on this highly logical brain, and it doesn't work out because you didn't take any emotions into play. Maybe you made decisions so logically that you didn't realize that project you put together it seems perfectly logical, but it's so unbelievably overwhelming and draining that the emotional side of you is going to suffer so bad. But if you had realized that when you were making the decision, you had balanced the logic and reason and the emotional brain, you probably would have had that same great project, but perhaps you would have structured it a little differently. Perhaps the deadline would have been a little different. Just something might have changed. I can use any situation, but it's all the same. Logic and reason and emotion. How do we get all those brains working, right? You're not using 10% of your brain. That's a lie. You use 100%. But which parts are you using first? Which parts are you using together? How do you create that environment you want to be in where there's a nice, natural balance? So with meditation, the more you can become in touch with your self-awareness in real time. So the self-awareness in real time, then emotional awareness, you're kind of buying your brain one more second to catch up. Just one more second. And in that 1 second, magic can happen. There's actually something in your brain that lights up. If you go back to the kind of seesaw of logic and reason and emotions and think of it as a seesaw and the little peg or the little triangle that the seesaw wavers on back and forth, that's your anterior cingulate. We'll keep it simple. That's a part deep in your brain that helps to balance that. And the amazing thing is, that part of your brain lights up when you're meditating. So the practice and the training is helping balance that out. So Daniel Goleman also wrote a book. So emotional intelligence was a while ago. Matter of fact, I say the 80s. It might have been actually early 90s. But the really cool thing is his most recent book, which was 2017. Yes, I think it was the early 90s, then it would be 2017. Should have done my homework before I started this podcast. Is called Altered Traits. And in that book, they look at meditation, the brain, science. So here we are, like years later, and whoop, there it is. The book on emotional intelligence is now followed up by a book on research on meditation. It's a really, really, really good book if you want to look at it, Altered Traits. So what I want you to do in your meditation that I know you're doing, and if you're not, I know you're planning on learning really quickly, is notice sensations. I always say get out of the thinking mind and enter the feeling mind. Be a human being, don't be a human doing. Blah, 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 blah. So start when you sit down to really do your body scan. Start your meditation, start your moments, even if it's 5 minutes, and start with a little bit of self-awareness through your body. And think to yourself, how am I feeling right now? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Right? Is it in my gut? Does it feel like I have an elephant on my chest? Where am I feeling it? And then you start to think, how long have I felt this way? Maybe even if I wanted to name that emotion, what would it be? And then, how is this emotion affecting me right now? Affecting my performance in my life, in my home, in my work, whatever. And throughout that practice, And throughout that meditation, kind of devoted to really getting into the feeling part of you, sometimes what will happen is suddenly that action of I know what to do will come up. And in that action, that's where there is action, not reaction. So to summarize, you can change your emotional intelligence. You can be as great as you want to be. And I know you want to be because I know you want to be in a world where you can perceive your emotions and those around you, because you do not live under a rock. We have people around us all the time, and I know you're a caring and compassionate person. So if you only take one thing away from this short podcast, is meditation does a lot of great things, including help your emotional intelligence. So try some of that stuff with your meditation. How are you feeling? How is your self-awareness? See how it feels. Shoot me a text, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, send me a smoke signal. Tell me how it's going. That's it for today, taters. I've got a really good podcast coming up with Sarah McLean, who is a woman back in 2014 that I went to after many years, and she helped me become a teacher, and about kind of demystifying all the types of meditation out there. I also have my class that I'm launching, which is also based on Sarah's method of, I call it SEED, or she calls it SEED, simple, easy, everyday meditation. So keep your eyes open for another podcast around the topic of SEED meditation. And if you are interested in learning more, jump on my website, alexazmeditates.com. I have some classes launching. I'm launching them all together. There will be several launches, and I'm really excited about it and about you. I'm always excited about you. I can't tell you any more, but get on my website. Check off if you're interested in some stuff I'm launching so you can get on the list, and I will tell you all about it. Have a great day. I hope you have subscribed to this podcast. If you didn't, please do. Leave me a review. I really appreciate it. Peace out, taters. Have a great day, and I'm always thinking about you.